Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, where your voice is heard and opinion matters.
Professor, thanks indeed, and sincere apologies for the time, but thanks for joining us and welcome to Power Talk.
No problem. Good morning, sir, and good morning to the listeners. And thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, Prof. Very troubling story there of outright racism. Just for the purposes of our listeners, can you just give us a brief introduction of yourself and the work you did at UCT?
Right. Thank you so much. In fact, I'm glad that you've asked that question because there's a context. This is just one malpractice that has just been, picked out of a litany of other malpractices that actually, perverted the canons of academia. Mm-hmm. So why am I here? Why are we here? The issue is that the context is that I was a head of department from 2018 to 2020 at the University of Cape Town, heading the Department of Social Development. And in that period, I was trying to rectify a whole lot of malfeasance that had been perpetrated by 6 individuals who were at every turn protected by senior managers, one acting dean, and then another dean came on board, and it continued. So I am an academic who's been, I worked at the University of Witwatersrand. I've worked at the University of Johannesburg, and even at twice actually, when it was RAU, Rand Afrikaans University. I worked at the University of Zambia. I trained. I was actually first degree was at the University of Zambia. Then I went to the University of Cambridge, and when I came to South Africa, I was teaching at WIT, and that's how I found myself in academia. So I've been in academia for quite a while. So UCT was not my first rodeo, and then I did my postdoc at Maison de Sciences de l'Homme in Paris, France, between 2005 and 2006. Then I worked for the South African government as a senior policy specialist in the Department of Social Development, chief director from 2007 to 2014. So that's in a nutshell who I am. But I grew up in the 1970s, 1980s, during the decolonization of Southern Africa, when it was quite privy to the issues that were unfolding during the liberation struggles of not only South Africa, but of the whole Southern African region, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Mozambique, Angola. So when we talk about these issues of engaging racism or racist acts,
yes,
it is not just something that emerges from nowhere. It comes from that history, that socialization, that justice must prevail.
What department were you heading at UCT?
The Department of Social Development, which is now the Department of Social Work and Social Development, I think, yeah.
And how precisely did you go about exposing this, and how do lecturers get to, in a way, because an exam, I would assume UCT uses student numbers and not names when the script comes to you. So how do they find that a specific student number belongs to a black or a white student, a female or a male student, such that they are able then, in your determination, give different marks?
Right. That's a very good question again. Before we went to the student numbers, there was also, you would have a student number, but also when you have the flap, they would also have their names. But it's easy for any academic to trace the student number to the name because they have their class list, isn't it? And those class lists, you have student numbers. But, Doc, these are the canons that I'm talking about of academia, that you don't breach them any old how, because of the fact that those canons, those safeguards are put in place for anonymity, to allow the individual not to be, targeted. And therefore, for someone to go beyond that, then it shows that there is something amiss.
So, Prof, how did you determine this? I mean, just from an evidence point of view, because the claim from a person that could be accused of this is that no, the white students are just doing better than the black students. How do you determine that no, you are giving them more marks? What would be a specific sign that proves that this is a deliberate giving of marks that they don't deserve?
Absolutely. That's another good question. Now, let me emphasize the point that before we are academics or lecturers, we are also social scientists. We study human behavior. So one of the key issues that happened in that department was a culture of impunity, a culture of non-performance, but that was being nurtured at the highest levels of the university's administrative echelons. And so when I came from the University of Johannesburg, I started looking at actually studying this department because it was hinted in the interview that I will be, one of the things that was the expectation was that I was going to be head of department. So I'd already started preparing myself. And so within 3 months in that department, before I became HOD in 2018, I was already being exposed to whole lots of malpractices and malfeasance. And one of the key issues that emerged was that, in my classes, when you talk about social justice and, why things must be right in South Africa, why things must be right in Africa, some of the students would come to me and say, well, do you practice what you preach? And I asked them why. And they started now alerting me to the fact that there are certain things that are happening in the university. Now, as a lecturer, as a teacher, you would know who are high performance on merit and those who are not high performance. So when I became an HOD, it was one would be able to ascertain how one jumped from the 70s and suddenly in the 80s, for example. There must be a track record, isn't it? But the first premise was African black South African students coming to me and others from the continent that department was anti-black and they were driving an agenda that was suppressing the views of young black students.
So, Prof, but how did you
took that into consideration?
Yeah, I apologize for pushing you. I'm just sensitive of time. If you could share with us how you sort of managed to find this out, that white students are getting marks that they don't deserve. What was the proof? The
proof was actually in the way the marks were distributed, but also how we were able to pinpoint certain lecturers who had been behind that kind of behavior. So it's not just a behavior that emerged from nowhere, that been going on, that they were actually supporting and providing more, impetus to white students in the way they gave them the marks, but also in the way they favored them in certain instances. So these individuals were actually identified by students themselves. And then I was able to follow that through the evidence in terms of cross-tabulating and cross-checking the type of marks which were emerging during exams.
So you were cross-checking those marks vis-a-vis which marks?
The marks that were emerging in the exam and the marks that were in the continuous assessment, and then cross-checking some of their so-called, favorite students and being able to ascertain, because I was already armed with this notion.
So a person would get 53% in an essay during the year, I'm looking for an example, and then get 80% in an exam. Is that what you are saying from the same lecture?
Not necessarily in such a huge bump. but there's just some, additions added.
But why would the same lecturer award such a student differently? Because it would seem to me it would be the same lecturer, because if it's a course, if they are giving them 52% in during an essay during the year, if they increase it by 10% in the exam, how do you determine that the same person is awarding different marks for racial favoritism?
Well, not only racial favoritism, I would hasten to add, the race factor is just one of them. The favoritism is the key issue. So they will have their favorite students based on whichever irrational criteria. But the racial issue begins to be the key issue that was driving young people to begin to ask themselves, but why are these lecturers driving this issue? So, in the interest of time, one of the things that we do is to do an analysis post-exam, and then to begin to find out why certain lecturers were opening the flaps of the exam scripts, because that's a starting point. And so we're able to ascertain that it's still the same group, and one of them even emerges arrogantly so to point out that, yes, I've been doing this for years.
So you do have a professor that...
not a professor, a lecturer.
A lecturer that accepted that they opened the flaps and they see no problem with it.
Absolutely. It's part of the band of evidence that I presented, not only to the Sunday Times expose, if I may hasten.
Sunday World.
To the Sunday World, if I may hasten to mention this fact. It is an issue that I've been dealing with from 2018 to 2020, and then when I was HOD. And then after that, I kept on presenting this evidence to the powers that be, deputy, especially the deans and the deputy vice chancellors, teaching and learning. Nothing was
and
done.
What then has UCT? What was its response? And was your next step then to take it to the Department of Higher Education and Training?
So that's why I'm saying there's a context and a history, and if I may also mention the fact that I've also written a book to document this whole issue. The book is there in exclusives and Zara books, etc., that talks about this issue from day one to the time I left UCT. Instead of dealing with the issues, they came after me with every trick in the book, in the sense that I was the one now that was being put through kangaroo processes. None of them went through a preliminary investigation committee or any other disciplinary action. They cried foul that I was bullying them court and came up with frivolous charges against me, which I beat with the same evidence. That's why I have this evidence, because it was not utilized by the internal structures. And so when I left UCT, or when should I say I was hounded from UCT, that's when I went to the Department of Higher Education to say, these things cannot continue, in a university that is supposed to be the #1 university in Africa. And yet we're finding these kinds of wrong things being supported by deans and deputy deans. Come on.
And when was this, Professor? If you could give us an estimation so we are able to measure whether the department is also taking it seriously or not. At what point did you then approach the department?
2023. That's 2023, and they actually started investigating this issue. There was an officer who was assigned to the issue and started investigating it, and did provide an initial report, and that report is somewhere in the Department of Higher Education.
What did the report say?
Well, the report was actually looking also at another malfeasance. You see, that's what I'm saying, that there's
but
a
did it confirm
here.
your findings?
It confirmed certain malpractices pertaining to certain issues. These issues must still be ventilated and investigated deeper.
So, in a way, the department itself found out that there are these opening of enclosures or slabs that are supposed to close names. It confirmed all of that, including...
No.
Okay.
No. So the issue of exams is just an issue that has not been dealt with even internally.
Even by the department.
The Department of Higher Education, also by the Department, by the University of Cape Town. Mm-hmm. The issues that I raised with the Department of Higher Education was pertaining to a senior academic who was involved in drug use and burning down of an office, and then UCT covered that up. I was the first person to be on the scene as the head of department, and this individual was promoted to my position because I don't know what criteria they used. So that was part of the litany of other wrong things. I mean, you have somebody who's an associate professor coming to the department, smoking drugs, daylight, burns a building, and nothing is done. He gets promoted. So I raised that issue with the Department of Higher Education and raised it sharply with former Minister Dr. Mbuyiseni.
Let me ask the final question just before we go to the news. It would seem to me, at least with exams, there is peer review. Which is a qualitative process to try and say, yes, the lecturer has awarded the following marks, but they are taken to an external examiner to confirm that these are qualitatively proper marks. Are you saying that even with that mechanism, the university still fails to expose that white students are getting marks they don't deserve?
Absolutely. There are very, very easy ways of manipulating. You see, when you're coming from a nefarious position, you can easily manipulate and pervert mechanisms, systems in place. That's what they're doing. Even the issues of redress and disciplinary actions, they are perverted to the whims and caprices of individuals who occupy those positions of power. Okay. You see, it's easy.
Professor Noyoo, thanks very much for sharing your story, and we will try get hold of the department. The University of Cape Town statement just says they are cooperating with the department. They will not be saying much on the matter, and they will abide with any findings. They say they've got full cooperation with the investigation, and we'll see where it leads us. But thanks very much for joining us here on Power Talk, Prof.
Thank you, sir, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. That's it, Bantwana Benkosi. Very difficult to prove, but I see many people say, even on Twitter, that this is a widespread practice in South African universities. It's 11 o'clock. It's time for the news with Nyakalo Tefu.